watching the best. Fox 10 News at 9.
Now at 9, a man is killed by police in the East Valley. They say he was armed with a handgun and rifle. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis drops out of the presidential race. Our John Hook is live with the latest from New Hampshire. Plus, winter weather returns to Arizona, and we're just getting started. But first, a man is dead after being shot by police in Gilbert. It happened today near Greenfield and Knox Roads. Police received calls about an armed man in the area and found a 40-year-old getting out of his car with a handgun and rifle and wearing a ballistic vest. Gilbert police say he approached them and ignored commands. It's unclear if the suspect fired, but he was shot and killed.
This is an isolated incident. The officers are canvassing the area right now. There is no other injuries, and it is still an active investigation.
It is unknown where the man is from or the reason he was armed.
While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead.
Ron DeSantis drops out of the race for president 2 days before the New Hampshire primary and endorses Donald Trump on the way out, not Nikki Haley. Let's go to John Hook live in Nashua, New Hampshire tonight with the latest. So John, did you see this coming?
No, Brian, I didn't. But obviously Ron DeSantis was running out of runway. And he started talking to his crowd, his advisors over the last few days, trying to figure out a path forward. And they just couldn't come up with one. He was going to finish in single digits here in New Hampshire, and the map going forward didn't look much better. So he exits the race, a guy with really a strong resume as a governor in Florida and a Republican icon, but it never got better than it was back in April and May. And it just kind of devolved from there. And frankly, when he gave this speech, bowing out, it's the most relaxed and happy that he's looked in months, frankly, almost like a relief had come over him and the burden had been lifted. But on his way out, he blasted the one challenger left to Donald Trump. He blasted Nikki Haley.
Following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. We can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over.
So what this means for Nikki Haley in a couple of days when the voting happens here in New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary, we don't know. Ron DeSantis about 5 or 6% here. Does that now go to Donald Trump and help give him kind of an insurmountable lead coming out of here? We'll see. Keep in mind that Nikki Haley is in a place where it's much more favorable to her than Iowa was. This electorate here is about 40% independent, or what they call undeclared. So these voters tend to gravitate toward the middle of the political spectrum, and that's right where John McCain was in 2000 and 2008 when he won in double digits in both of those primaries. That kind of centrist politics plays very well here in New Hampshire, and Nikki Haley is counting on it because this is frankly her last stand. She goes back to South Carolina against Donald Trump, and she's trailing in her home state. She was governor there, and she's trailing by about 20-some%. So it doesn't look favorable for her. She's got to shock the world on Tuesday night. We'll see if that can happen. As for Donald Trump, typical Trump, after blasting DeSantis for months, calling him Ron DeSanctimonious, he said that moniker is now dead and buried and he will never use it again. So they're starting to coalesce around Donald Trump. We'll see if Nikki Haley has something to say about that Tuesday night here in New Hampshire. And we'll have it all covered for you, Brian.
Hey, John, before you go, I got to ask about the weather. It looks kind of cold there. I know that impacted some things in Iowa. What do you think about this week in New Hampshire?
I think it's fine. I mean, to us, this is balmy. It's about 12 degrees, feels like 6. but that's a far cry from -13, wind chill -33. So for New Hampshire folks, this is not a big deal. I think Tuesday night they'll get a good turnout.
All right, fair enough. Good stuff, John. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you later this week from New Hampshire.
Okay, Brian.
Have a good night. Well, the race is on to be the next sheriff of Maricopa County, and a few candidates decided to change from Republican to Democrat so they could be eligible. Marissa Sarbeck joins us live with more tonight. Marissa.
Brian, Paul Penzone stepped down officially earlier this month, and there is an election for the position later this year. But in the meantime, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors needs to find an interim sheriff. Now, Arizona law states that the Board of Supervisors needs to find somebody from the same political party as the person who stepped down.
Sheriff Paul Penzone was a Democrat, so Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is required to appoint another Democrat to fulfill the remainder of the term.
The deadline to apply to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors for the position of interim sheriff was Friday. Supervisor Steve Gallardo says at least 7 candidates applied, but 3 who have been lifelong Republicans just switched to the Democratic Party. Former Apache Junction Commander Jeffrey Kirkham, former MCSO Deputy Chief Kenneth Booker, and current MCSO Chief Deputy Russ Skinner, who has been running the department since Penzone's tenure ended earlier this month.
We have never done this before. This has never happened where we have candidates switching parties just months before the appointment. They knew the vacancy was coming, so all of a sudden they're switching parties to say, hey, I'm a Democrat, I want to be considered. Doesn't play well with me.
The move isn't illegal, it's a loophole. The supervisor says there is nothing stopping the candidates from getting appointed as a Democrat and then switching back to the Republican Party to run for the open position in the November election. While the appointment ultimately comes from the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, Gallardo is pushing for a citizen review board to determine whether these applicants should be eligible.
We did it with the county attorney's office, a very important position. We should do it with the sheriff's office as well, particularly the fact that we are still under a court order with Melendrez to engage the community, to get feedback. We have a CAB, it's called CAB, the Citizens Advisory Board, that is required by the court order.
Fox 10 did reach out to the applicants we mentioned for interviews. We are still waiting to hear back. Reporting live tonight in downtown Phoenix, Marissa Sarbeck for Fox 10 News.
Thank you, Marissa. Okay, the first batch of rain is on its way out of the valley tonight, but leaving behind some slick streets like this spot on the I-10 in Avondale. And more rain is on the way shortly. Crystal is tracking the storms tonight. Hi, Crystal.
Yeah, hey Brian, so we've been talking about there was a 1-2 round of rain and snow that we were expecting. The first one already starting to move out, but the next one not too far off. Take a look right now on Fox Vision and you can see what's left of today's rain. It wasn't a super heavy rain, it was mostly light sprinkles on and off, but still some steady stuff that is falling over the southern part of the state. You can see Tucson getting still some good consistent rain, as well as in parts of Kearney to San Manuel, and that's going to be moving right on into Saffron and parts of Graham and Greeley County. Then we look up farther north and you can see in parts of Apache Navajo counties, everything that's left is fizzling out. So we are drying out and it'll be dry as we start tomorrow morning. As I mentioned, in the valley, totals weren't huge today. A few hundredths of an inch, out by surprise, a little over 1/10 of an inch. And in the East Valley, it was such a sprinkle, misty kind of wet weather that it really didn't even register on some of the gauges that we have in the East Valley. But tomorrow, I do think will register. Look at those chances of rain increasing into the evening tomorrow night. That could be a heavier rain. We'll talk about the timing of it coming up in just a few.
See you then, Crystal. Up next, an Arizona man needs a life-saving kidney, then finds one 5 years later, clear across the country. Plus, the latest on a wrong-way crash in the valley that killed a mother and injured her young daughter last night. And caught on camera, a volcano erupts on the other side of the globe for the second time in 2 months.